Hi everyone and welcome to my studio. Today we're going to paint some wild and exciting loose poppies. And these are the brushes I'm going to use to do it with. My good old round synthetic brush here, a Ron Ranson Hake brush, which is the secret to the loose petals, a Isabey mop brush for putting water on the paper, and a large round white sable which has already got some red on it. And without doing any drawing, I'm going to come in and wet the areas on the paper where I'm going to put the flowers. This is a very heavy 300-pound Arches rough watercolour paper which feels like cardboard. It's very stiff, has a very strong texture to it. And really the secret of this painting is in the paper. So if you give it a try and it doesn't turn out quite like you would have expected, try getting yourself some really heavy and rough paper. It's a completely different experience. So I've picked up a mixture of different reds, all randomly mixed together on my big palette, on my Ron Ranson Hake, and I'm just indicating where the poppies are going to be, allowing the irregular bristles on this brush to determine lots and lots of broken colour, lots of white space, just giving the impression of poppies in flower. And the colours I'm using are a mixture of 3 or 4 different reds. There's permanent rose, there's alizarin crimson, there's scarlet, and cadmium red and cadmium orange, all kind of smushed in together there to give me a kind of unique blend. And this is quite fun. You have to be very direct. You can't afford to mess around with too much detail here, but just trying to get different levels of intensity of colour in different parts of the poppy. Poppies have a very formless kind of shape. Their petals are floppy, they fall all over the place. It's very difficult to really capture exactly how they look. Really, it's more of an impression. This is what you might call an impressionistic version. I hesitate to say abstract, because to me abstract is when you can't actually tell what something is at all. So like somebody might paint a poppy and it looks like a green box and call it a poppy. That's abstract. This is impressionistic. I need to add a little bit more water to the paper, so I've got my little spray bottle here, which I'm going to just spray a little bit of water all around those shapes and onto the rest of the paper. Not a huge amount, just a little bit. And the idea is to make the red just bleed a little bit into the surrounding area where so far there isn't any paint, just to keep things a bit mobile. And I'm just giving it a little bit of encouragement here to actually bleed into the water that I've just put on there, just gently helping the paint to move a little bit. And now I've got a slightly thicker mixture of paint here. There's probably more alizarin crimson in here, perhaps a bit more cadmium to give a bit more density, a bit more darkness, trying to emphasize some of the shadowy areas. And now I'm working on the centers of the poppies. I've got some nice thick black here, and I'm just indicating the dark centers with kind of broken strokes, leaving the center of the center, if you see what I mean, a little bit lighter, because in the center of the centers there's a kind of greenish tinge in many poppies. And now I'm going to indicate the stems, and this is a little bit again impressionistic here, or you could say stylized. I'm not trying to draw the stems of the poppies in any sense in a realistic way. I'm just giving an impression of thin green stems holding up, thin, very fragile, thin stems holding up what look like really large poppy heads, but which are actually so light that they only need the slightest and most fragile of stems to hold them up in a field of corn. And here I'm adding a bud, opening flower, and another one up here, and I'm going to put a third one on the left-hand side to balance things off. And they're all going to have these very thin, fragile stems and no leaves. I'm not going to put any leaves in this painting at all. And now I'm coming in with my round brush with just plain water, and I'm just touching the edges of the flowers, which are still wet because I used a lot of paint, and just dragging down into the white paper the pigment that's sitting on the edges of the poppies. And just a very light touch to just allow the colour to bleed a bit more. We did this at the beginning, but now this is stage 2, where the poppies are now going to reunite with the background so they look as if they belong on the paper. I'm going to do this all over the whole painting. And now I'm just going to add a little bit of spatter, again to link the flowers with the background. And then I'm going to have to set this aside for a couple of hours while it dries, because as the paper is so very thick and I've used quite a lot of paint and water, it's not going to dry. So I think I'll go and have lunch. Okay, it's dry now, and I'm coming back in with some more red to enhance the tones of the red poppies, because as we know, when watercolour paint dries, it tends to lose a lot of its intensity, and red is particularly prone to this. So we are going to have to come in again with our dark reds and enhance the shadowy and the areas that we want to be stronger. It's also a good opportunity to add other colours if you want to vary things at all. I like to add quinacridone gold to my poppies because it seems to enhance the red. If you can put a little bit of an orangey yellow in there beside the red. I'm a little bit frustrated at the moment because I've run out of quinacridone gold, so I have to use something else. I'm going to use transparent yellow with a bit of permanent rose to make a kind of orange, but it's not the same. I'm very fond of quinacridone gold because it's such a good mixable colour that brings life into your paintings with no effort at all. It's a wonderful thing. Highly recommend that you get yourself some if you haven't got any. I've been using Winsor and Newton for a long time, but I'm swapping to Schminker right now. Although I do think that Daniel Smith is supposed to be good as well. I haven't tried it. And now I'm going to draw in the stamens for the flowers, for the poppies. I'm using a Staedtler Karat Aquarelle watercolour pencil here, which is a great tool for bringing in some controllable darks into your painting. You can use it to emphasize anywhere that you want to have a good solid dark line, it's probably more controllable than black paint in many situations. So if you do want control, that's a good thing. And now I've just picked up my small rigger and some very liquid red paint, and I'm doing a bit of spatter in the background here. And now there's one or two areas where I want to actually just define the edge of a petal, just for a bit of variety. So here's the final painting. As you can see, it's a very loose interpretation of Poppies, but I hope you like it, and I hope you enjoyed watching my technique for painting these lovely flowers. I've enjoyed working in the studio today to produce this work, and I've also managed to complete a painting of some beautiful red tulips in a glass jar, which I'm just going to show you it here. I can't show you me doing it because I accidentally deleted it from the camera, so unfortunately I don't have a record of that, which is a great shame. But I will be putting it up for sale on my website at dianeantone.com. If you're interested in having a better look at the picture, it will be on my website. So that's all for today. So I'll just say goodbye for now and see you again tomorrow. Bye bye everyone. Bye bye.